Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We work very hard to have a diverse programming slate on Sunday nights to discuss a whole variety of topics, from health topics and Torah topics and the whole spectrum. Tonight we have a very special presentation. Unfortunately, the situation we are currently in is a difficult situation. And in life, we live on three planes. We live on an individual plane, we live on a national plane, and we're part of the greater world body as well. And unfortunately, we're currently, each one of these three planes are in a difficult situation. On an individual level, many people are struggling. On a national level, we're a couple of days before Tisha B'Av, which is the time of stress for our nation as a Klal Yisrael, time of difficulty. And on the world level, the world is under a siege as well. It's a very trying time, but we believe in Kiner Mitzvah, the Torah Or. The Torah is light, the Torah is guidance. And during challenging times, we look to great Torah scholars to give us some light, to give us some clarity. And this evening, we're honored to have, all the way from Eretz Israel, from Israel, at 2:30 in the morning. I'm not sure if he woke up early or he didn't go to sleep at all. But Rabbi Zevulun Schwartzman, an outstanding Talmid Chacham, person that I know that is dedicated to the community, for the Klal, and works very hard to help people on a whole variety of levels, besides being an outstanding Talmid Chacham. It's a great honor to have him speak with us this evening. And Jacob Gold, who knows the Rav quite well, will formally introduce him.
So first of all, our shul has been closed. It's a little over 4 months, and this is the first time I'm speaking on a public webinar or Zoom. And I really wanted to thank Fifth Avenue, all the staff, for all their hard work. Sheila Montgomery, who's our executive director, became the technical Zoom expert. She's on all of our Zoom calls, and I want to publicly thank Sheila for all of her hard work. I want to thank Rabbi Babbage and Lisa Babbage for stepping up and giving all their extra classes. I want to thank Rachel for all of her correspondence with the community during these challenging times, and for all of her help in organizing all of our programming. Tonight, we're very fortunate to hear from an outstanding Torah scholar, Rav Zevulun Schwartzman, who I met on my first trip to Israel in 1986, and it's been about 34 years. And as I mature and get older, I become more grateful to have a relationship with such an outstanding Talmid Chacham. Rav Zevulun runs a very elite kollel in Israel with Rav Moshe Shapiro, who is Nifter, and he also has a kollel in Russia. There's a lot of converts in Russia, and Rav Zevulun is going back and forth pre-COVID and post-COVID to teach these converts very high level of learning. Tonight we asked Rav Zevulun to address us from Israel. As Rabbi Babbage said, it's 2:30 in the morning. All of us know the world currently seems like it's turned upside down. There's a lot of volatility, uncertainty, both in the financial environment, in the safety, and really in every way. Everyone has been affected dramatically over the last 4 to 5 months, and we all know that this week is a historic negative week of terrible calamity, where the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. And we thought it'd be great to have a great Torah scholar to try to give us some perspective on what is going on in the world today, and maybe some things that we can do through this week of the 9 days, and maybe possibly through Tisha B'Av, to potentially turn our mazel around and the world around in a more positive way. I would also say that Rav Zevulun, besides, you can ask him any question anywhere in the Talmud, and he'd love to answer, but he's also very knowledgeable on world events and culture events, and just amazed at how much insight he's given to me over the years. And so, feel free after the Rabbi Zevulun's presentation, for any questions that you want to ask him. He's very open to helping any which way he can. With no further ado, I would like to address Rabbi Zevulun Schwartzman to address us. Thank you. Rabbi.
Good evening. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be able to address a Kehillah Kadosha, this community that I haven't had the fortune of meeting yet, and first and foremost the Rav, the Rabbi Babbage, who I have spoken to, and I had the pleasure of some level of face-to-face meeting, and to my dear friend Jacob Gold, your president, who's really, since I know, is dedicated to being what a Jew is supposed to be, and trying always and aspiring to do more, and to find the right thing and to do the right thing. And now let's just talk about the issue at hand. Really, we call what we're living now in is a pandemic. It's the health crisis, especially in the United States, in the East Coast, have subsided a little bit. Other areas in the United States are being hit harder now. But there's something very unique about what's happening. I think there's two aspects to this uniqueness. On one hand, historically, for us Jews, and in general the world, has gone through many worse pandemics throughout history, different that devastated millions upon millions, which was of people all over the world. I mean, the Spanish flu, this has happened. We even know writings of great Torah scholars giving people direction, how to act, how not, what to do. Fortunately, on this hand, this pandemic is much more limited. It's a limited nature, not of how many. I mean, unfortunately, every human life, every Jewish life is meaningful. But yet, that's not what makes this crisis unique. What there is here is two things. Number one, the sense we live in a world today that that we feel we have a sense of control of our destiny. Most people are fortunate on a personal level, and as a society, there's a certain, not just stability, but sense of control of what's happening, where we're going, how we can do things, can do it better this way, do it better that way, more, less. But as Jews, as practicing Jews, as believing Jews, Baruch Hashem, it's positive. It's things. There's a certain sense of all of a sudden we have a sense of lack of control, lack of knowledge of what's happening. When is it going to happen? How is it going to happen? We don't know. It's the fact that there's something that affects us at large, and medically there will be there will be a vaccination. There won't be. It affects this type of person, that type of person. It's changing. Is it working this way? Is it working this way? Who is at risk? Even though this is a general picture, certain people are at risk. All of a sudden, other people show up at risk. All of a sudden, there's different ramifications of the disease that we don't understand, that we can't predict. Things just really a sense. I mean, the scientific community, the medical community, no one really has sense of idea, where any sense of certainty of how to do and what to do next. It's just, let's call it, the uncertainty of this issue is unique. I mean, even if there was worse situations, but we know it's bad and this will happen to many people. We have to go on. Here we don't know where to go and what to do. And the second thing is, most health crises till this day many people died, many people affected. I mean, we read the stories of how many people were affected. But, everyone just kept struggling on to do what they can, to live how they can. Some people were more fortunate, less fortunate people of greater means were able to, have more opportunities to continue to do. All of a sudden, here's something that disrupted our whole way of life. Everything is disrupted because our sense of understanding what we should do to control the pandemic, how we could do it. We think we know more, and because we think we know more, we realize how a standstill, economies at a standstill, social standstills, everything, lockdown, close downs, open lockdowns. We can't even look each other in the face. There's a mask blocking us if we're not on Zoom. Yeah, we just it's really the disruption and of everything that's happening. Just on a larger level, on some people on a more personal level, everything is disrupted. It's not, the economy is not that there's an economic crisis, there's a recession, there's a or there's even there was depressions even. It just totally, everything's out of control, totally out of control. It's not that, it's not this tremendous losses, tremendous problems. It's, will we in a month and I'll be able to go to work or not to go to work? Will all schools be closing down? Won't they be closing down? Are they opening? Are they closing? Is this just, everything's out. This is the uniqueness of the situation we're in. And it's a certain sense of, besides the actual difficulties each person has, it's a depressing type of situation. Usually, Yidden, when they're in the hopelessness, a sense of hopelessness of the situation, like what comes to mind. I mean, God forbid, I'm not here to not trying to compare our situation to the time of the Holocaust, but in a sense of the despair, we don't know where we're going, what's happening. To add to that, also in the United States, especially the upheavals, the social upheavals, the sense of direction of the country in general is very disheartening to see. All of a sudden, what we thought was the norm, which we thought was right and good, all of a sudden, all of a sudden, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln are the enemies of the people since, and I mean it's so, it's a sense of not just insecurity, just pulling the rug under the feet of everything our life is about. At these times, people usually say, we need Mashiach. We need Mashiach. We need salvation. Call it how Sweden, salvation means the coming of Mashiach. I mean, it's like Eis Tzorah Yaakov. We need a Mashiach. Yet, there's no greater time to think of we need Mashiach than when we're living in at this special, unique point in time, which is like was mentioned here already, that before Tisha B'Av, the many different levels and layers before Tisha B'Av, that everything is coming to the time we mourn the destruction. We're looking forward. We want. How do some that says we want Mashiach now. We want Mashiach. We want but on the other hand, we have to understand Mashiach that just doesn't mean, to solve my personal problems or social problems, economic problems. Mashiach means a total, a total new world order. It means a world that lives very differently. And on the other hand, are we really waiting for that? We're really waiting for a world that, as the Rambam tells us, which at the end of the Rambam of Maimonides, my mentor's work, and those Mishnah Torah, which accompany this. What we look forward to is not that we should be in a terrific financial situation, in a terrific political situation, to have all our needs and our desires catered to, but it's a time when the world will function so smoothly that we'll be able to really concentrate on what's important, on our relationship with the Rebbeinu Shalom, on reaching greater intellectual heights, moral heights, and to prepare ourselves to the Rebbeinu Shalom's purpose in our creation, which is to give us a spirituality beyond comprehension, which is really very, something that, it's not what we're living about. It's not our day-to-day, our life. So what are we really waiting for? What do we really want? Maybe I just want to point out very interesting that I saw brought down the name of Soloveitchik. Something very, very interesting. The Rambam writes about Tisha B'Av. Says something very interesting about Tisha B'Av. It says what the halachas are, how a person is supposed to act. They have Tisha B'Av, what you're allowed to eat, what you're not allowed to eat. You have to be in a very somber mood and situation. We know the Suda Mafsekes. We sit on the floor and we don't have a full meal. We just eat one item. The Rambam says this is what normal people are responsible to do, but the very pious people and the great scholars, they did something different. Erev Tisha B'Av, they would sit all day, Erev Tisha B'Av and Tisha B'Av, in a sense of loss and tearful, crying all the time. Like somebody who unfortunately has someone very close just passed away, and the body is still lying there in front of him. He's really, he's, to put it in simple terms, he's just devastated. He has to be devastated. The Rambam uses the term shemama. Shemama means the world is totally devastated. There's nothing there. There's no, just you wondering, there's nothing happening. It's all gone. We don't know what's going to happen next minute. That's the state. And he's just sitting and he just uncontrollable. Almost like that's the way. And it describes a situation which you don't think any believing Jew should ever be in. A Yid is always supposed to have faith and hope and looking, and let's contrast this. Let's contrast this to what the Rambam teaches us is the way we're supposed to mourn deep personal losses. Personal losses, which is known, which the way we react to them is what is called avelus, which is translated mourning. And when a person mourns, the Rambam tells us in Hilchas Avelus, in the 13th parak, in Halacha Yud Aleph, in the 11th Halacha, he says a person shouldn't be too distraught over losing someone very close. He brings the pasuk al tifku lemeis. We can't cry too much over when we lose someone. Yesemi die, because that's the way of the world. We have to mourn. We have to understand we had a terrible loss. The Rebbeinu Shalom did something terrible to us. We feel, but we have to know that this is the way of the world. This is part of the process, and we have to know what to learn from it, what to take from it, how to go further, how to improve our situation, and go on. And therefore, it says, 3 days you cry, the hesped, the eulogize, 7 days, and for 30 days we don't practice our normal way of life. We don't take haircuts and other things, and many other things that we have, how we act in the morning, and we incorporate what's meant to teach us, and we learn from our losses, and we learn from what we had from the people we had, and we go on. And he says someone who doesn't do that way, who just feels the world came to an end, harei ze tipish. He's a fool. He's a fool. As opposed, so Rabbi Salvation points out, here it says, don't mourn too much. To control it. In Hilchos Tisha B'Av, the Rambam tells us someone who's really an insightful person, the Chachomim, Chassidim, people who are pious and righteous, or who have the greater perspective, they mourn uncontrollably. It's a contrast. How are we supposed to react to Tisha B'Av as opposed to the personal losses? The reason for it is every personal loss that a person sees happening to him is minhagoi shel olam. It's the way of the world. And then we have to know how to incorporate, just like Kishem Shemavochin ala Toiv, just like we bless and thank the Rebbeinu Shalom for what's good, Mavochim ala Ra. We bless for the difficult things that happen to us also. We have to know how to take them and destroy and control. That's everything except for Tisha B'Av. We can't take it and destroy it. We can't. We have to mourn because the sense of loss has to be such to make our sense things are impossible. It's impossible. It just can't. We can't continue. There's no way. Why is that? This is what he points out. There's something very interesting. That I want to add to this. It says in Hilchos Tainus, it says to look at it with such dismay, and the situation is so terrible. Because it's a way of the wise people, of a chacham, of those we call chacham. In Hilchos Avelus, when the Rambam tells us that we have to look the other way, we have to say, take it into stride. He says, someone who doesn't, harei ze tipish, he's a fool. He's the opposite of a wise person. Contrast. Here the Rambam calls a person who loses everything, who feels everything, there's no hope, a fool. Here he calls the person who sees everything, it's all lost, the wise person. It's almost, the answer is very clear. The idea of a chacham, chacham has a perspective. Eyes, sees. Sees means you have a perspective. Minhag Shalom, the perspective we have to have is that nothing, the Rebbeinu Shalom makes us difficulties, but as the Rebbeinu Shalom gives us life, gives us to continue. That's the Minhag Shalom. It's an imperfect world, and we're there to strive and to take things into stride and to use things to better ourselves, to keep growing, to keep developing. That's Minhag Shalom. It's the way of the world. That's if we take things with a broader perspective, a deeper perspective, a more insightful perspective, as opposed to Tisha B'Av, as opposed to looking at Churban Beis Hamikdash. When we look at Churban Beis Hamikdash, we're not just looking at there was something, we had something very special, we had something great, and the Rebbeinu took it away from us because of our sins, because we did something wrong. No. The way of life, the meaning of life, how we lived our lives, and how we aspire and we await to live our lives has a totally different meaning. The life we live now, we have to look at as, no, this is not the life we want. This is not what we have a perspective of a different meaning of life. And let me use the word a little bit. It's the Medrash and Yerushalmi also tells us something that many people have heard in the past, I'm sure. Kol dor, every generation, she'ena nivna b'yomov, that the Beis Hamikdash is not built in his days. Ma'ala olav, the pasuk, ki'ilu hichrivoi, as if he actually participated in the destruction of the temple. Someone, anyone, every generation, every person, every generation, there's different versions of the text, who the Beis Hamikdash wasn't built in his days, it's as if it was destroyed in his days. What was destroyed in his days? The temple that was destroyed 2,000 years ago? I don't think so. The temple that was destroyed 2,000 years ago was a terrible loss. And we are looking forward to the building of the temple in the times of Mashiach, to the time when it's not just he will build the temple. Building the temple is the culmination of a new world order, a world order that on one hand is physically, socially, economically perfect. No, it is everything, it's most, the way it's described, like in the famous wording of the Navi of Yeshayahu, the Gazevim Kevis. No, the wolf shall live with the sheep in total harmony, which is naturally not meant literally. It means sense that the wolves of this world and the sheep of this world will live in harmony. Everyone will have his place. No one will be looking to outdo the other one. There will be a sense, and everyone's needs will be taken care of and catered to. Everything, and all this perfect world will be a world that will leave us available, almost totally free. For what? To be able to concentrate and focus on the greater meanings of life, the greater purpose of our existence, the teachings of the Torah, which is really, and how to develop ourselves personally with knowledge, understanding of the knowledge, and living of knowledge, to live in a world which will ultimately lead us to the world to come, a world which we live in total perfection, total Chai Olam Haba, which is total perfection. Whether the Olam Haba is what exact setup for Olam Haba is not relevant. Ayin Lo Yasa. We don't know what it is, but we'll be able to live in a world to our whole life be focused on real the human perfection, the perfection of our relationship to the Bari Olam, to the Rebbeinu Shalom, to bring us to greater heights of meaning. And for that we need a perfect world order. We need a perfect world, a perfect situation, because we won't, free of worries, free of everything. In other words, what we aspire to is something that we could live in a world to live. It's a different level of existence, a different level of living. We live for greater goals, and for that, the Rebbeinu Shalom gives us a perfect world. Not so that we could just sit back and relax in our comfort, but rather to give it meaning. This is the world this is what the Rebbeinu Shalom has in store for us. This is that everything we live is meaningful on the highest sense of the world and rewarding and fulfilling, and is what the Rebbeinu Shalom, this is the life each and every one of us Jews is meant to live. For that goal, for that purpose, the Rebbeinu Shalom will create a perfect situation that could live that life and grow in that situation. This is what should be every moment. Means we know this is what should be. This is what the Rebbeinu Shalom wants for us. Why isn't it happening at this moment? Why isn't it happening at every moment? The only reason it's not happening is because we are not allowing it to happen. We are not really. How do we allow this to happen? How do we allow this? How do we bring this about? There's one thing that we're really, it's focused around one thing. Yeshua. I'm looking forward to this. I want this. I'm telling a person says that without this, I just can't live. I can't go on. It's not working. But here we have a dilemma. On one hand, what we feel is not working is not really because it's not this lofty goal. What's not working is we have a problem. We have a problem with our lives, our social, economic, what the situation with the family under these conditions, all the issues that come up that are our mundane issues. We say, solve this for me and I'll continue. But the truth is different. When the Rebbeinu Shalom sends us a reminder there's no security in the world order. So if we think this is our world, this is life, we could make the best of it and make it go, and it works. It's working for us. We live in a generation that we thought it's working for us. The system is working. The system, the general system, the Jewish system, the Torah system, the systems are go. And we aspire to let's add a little bit to it. When the Rebbeinu Shalom sends us a reminder that it doesn't work. It's not working. It's not just meant to tell us, so ask the Rebbeinu Shalom, let it start working again. It's meant to tell us this is not what's meant to be. It's a reminder to tell us when we see it's not working, where the Rebbeinu Shalom give us a world that it works. What world does it? Where does it work? In a world that lives for greater goals, for greater aspirations. It's a wake-up call. It's a tremendous wake-up for people to say where their aspirations should be. No, this is not the world order as it should be, what we were living. Despite what we thought, what should be something else. When all of a sudden, it just can't. It's not working. The analogy to this is the Gemara tells us that in order for redemption, we have to repent, do tshuva. It says, what happens if we don't do tshuva, if we don't repent? So the Rebbeinu Shalom will send us Melech Kosher, will give us difficult times, a difficult king like Nebuchadnezzar, like Titus, people, terrible dictators, world rulers that really are destructive to everything. And we'll Ma'amid Melech Kosher, and we see Rebbeinu Shalom save us. But when we say Rebbeinu Shalom save us, every Jew is awakened to a deeper save us, because obviously the way the world works is not a world that of complacency and bring us back to where we were before the destruction. Well, obviously that didn't work. But tshuva means that a person elevates himself to a higher level, to looking for a greater meaningfulness in life. And that tshuva itself leads a person to be mitzapeli Yeshua and waiting for the Yeshua, the Rebbeinu Shalom, and waiting to uplift us to a lifestyle, to a world of living that is really meaningful at every moment. And there in that world, the only issue is how much do we grow, how much do we continue to grow. The tzipiyah Yeshua itself, the looking forward to itself, says is accomplished by when we feel this can't go on. The world we live in, this is not the way the world should be. This is not the world we want to be. The world of churban, of destruction, is not destruction on the spiritual sense, can't be, because it's really the physical sense also just can't be. And therefore, it leads us to the tzipiyah Yeshua and to aspiring to Bias HaMashiach and Lashon Haba, B'Yushalayim, Habnuya, built completely from above and from below to the greatness which the Rebbeinu Shalom has in store for each one of us. Thank you. Rabbi?
Thank you so much, Rabbi Schwartzman, for that very meaningful presentation. Just a couple of questions. I'm sure Jacob may have some questions as well.
Okay.
But in times of uncertainty and in times of crisis, when people just don't know what's going on, there's a certain measure of comfort to give some, for a person to be presented with some very practical and specific guidelines as to what to do. When everything in life is chaotic, and as the Rav mentioned, it creates a certain uncertainty and instability. Sometimes it's a comfort to know the given clear directions, try to work on A, B, C, and D, or try to do A, B, and C, and D. Does Rav have any insight on a practical level to give people some guidance to calm their anxiety or their uncertainty or their despair in terms of practical behaviors?
Well, I imagine each person needs advice for his personal situation, whatever it is, how to approach it, how to look at it. But in general, the idea, I would just, the anxiety, without addressing any specific anxieties, if it's financial, if it's social, if it's, what's going to be with this, what's going to be with that. But the general sense, the anxiety, the deepest level of anxiety is that, in a sense, because we live in a world that we feel, so much in control, you feel like, everything is under control in the broader sense, in the broader sense. And when we realize that nothing is in control, absolutely zero. Nothing's in control. The only sense of security that a person could have, and this is very practical, is he lives in the world of bitoch. He lives in the world, says, I realize I'm in the Rebbe Shalom's hands, and it was always in his hands, and he always took care of me. He always will take care of me. And it's just, the more a person realizes that he's not in control of his destiny. He knows that in his destiny is in Rebbe Shalom's hand, bitochen. And bitochen leads us to act differently. If a person has basic bitochen, bitochen just doesn't mean faith. It just means a sense, I know I'm dependent on the Rebbe Shalom. Therefore, I judge how I react to things is, what does the Rebbe Shalom want me to react? What is the right thing to do? All of a sudden he says, it's terrible. I don't like, let's use an example. A person says, I don't have where to eat, and he sees a piece of bread, I'll just grab it, wherever it is, and whoever it is, because I think his salvation is the piece of bread. Is the little, this, when he realizes the problem is not, the problem doesn't begin here and end here. It really begins because how is Rebbe Shalom leading me? So then the way to deal with it, not that you don't have to take practical steps to try to improve any situation, but when you think of what steps to take, what are the right steps to take? What is the right thing to do about my life in general? And even the difficulty I have, is this the right thing to do? Is this the good thing to do? When a person has bitochen, the Gemara tells something very interesting. What a person doesn't have when he lives in the world of bitochen, the Rebbe Shalom, the thing that he doesn't have is that tremendous sense of jealousy and a sense of, he's in my way, this is my way, that person's my way. What's called sinas chinam. Sinas chinam, people say free love instead of free hate. But sinas chinam really means that there's no reason that he justifies my hate, but he stands in the way of what I feel I should have. That again, he says, I got to get something. Someone lives in the world of bitochen, a world of, it's in Rebbe Shalom's hands. And the way to go about it is the way I understand the Rebbe Shalom would want me to go about it. Or I could discuss it with someone who knows more the ways of Torah and halacha and musar, and who will help direct me. What is the way to go about certain things? Where I should go, where I shouldn't be going. But that all depends. The first step is that we realize that we're no one's hands but the Rebbe Shalom's. Therefore, and the Rebbe Shalom wants us to take care of our problems, deal with them, but to deal with them the right way, to deal with our financial problems, our problems of are we living the right type of life? Are we doing the right things? And how should we do them? So the key is bitochen, and bitochen leads us to a higher level of functioning.
Thank you. As a follow-up to that, to the Rav's point, so the Rav was basically saying that, to understand that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is really always in charge, and we're really always vulnerable, whether we realize it or not realize it. It's just now that we are aware of it, but it's always like this. And therefore, since Hashem is in charge, the goal is to live life properly and to react in the way that the Torah would want us to react. As a follow-up to that, many people are facing the following dilemma. Because on one hand, since there's a danger outside, anytime you leave your house, there's a risk. The safest place to be, if possible, and is just to stay home. If one has the option and not to go anywhere, that's really the safest option. On the other hand, people have this desire, understandably, to try to serve Hashem properly and to do the mitzvos, which requires, often to leave one's house for minyan, to give tzedakah in this time of financial uncertainty, to have someone over, let's say for Shabbos meal who needs a place. So how does one grapple this dilemma of, on one hand, we have a responsibility to guard our health, and the safest thing is just not to go anywhere, just to stay where one is. On the other hand, that is going to limit the amount of proper behavior in terms of what the Torah, in a perfect world without the problems allows us to do. So there's no one really knows how much risk to take, how much not risk to take. The Rav could give us some insight into that.
Okay, let's there's certain aspects of what you said that, of the three issues you mentioned is participating in minyanim and in events that interacting with people in Torah and mitzvahs, which is I guess shurim, minyanim and the like. The second issue was tzedakah, and then interacting in ben adam l'chaveri, of which inviting people for meals there and interacting in helping people. So just a side remark, the second could always be resolved with a bank transfer, but
in terms of tzedakah, I meant that some people are concerned to give tzedakah because they're not sure about the economic climate. They're not sure what tomorrow is going to bring.
I see. Okay. That again, the issue of the economic climate, whether to give tzedakah, we always have certain guidelines of how much a person should give, how he's allowed to give. Naturally, your tzedakah as something that's a tremendous source for difficult situations is always there, but you have to be within a certain level and limit of guidelines. Again, there's lower level limits and there's higher limits. And that I think each person should discuss with his Rav, and because with his exact economic situation it involves naturally assets, liquidity, many things it's not for. But you should discuss it with the idea that giving tzedakah is one of the powerful tools that the Rebbeinu Shalom gave us. But having said that, definitely have to live within limits and guidelines that have to be discussed on the level. Now, to the broader issues, and naturally everyone has to, before he makes any decision, has to know what his health situation is and what his health situation is vis-a-vis others. Naturally, if a person in any way, Chalila, has come down with, has been infected by disease, even if he's perfectly well and healthy and it didn't really hurt him and he's functioning perfectly, like there are, which maybe half or even a majority of the people who came down with disease have, but they could affect others. Naturally, he's absolutely mechuyev, morally up to be totally in total lockdown, not to hurt any other person. This is not open to question. Any person who knows or suspects that he came down with the disease should verify it, and if he, God forbid, did come down with it, no matter what is health situation? I'm not talking about the question of seeking medical help, which obviously I'm not the expert on that and how to seek it, but how to seek the medical help. But if he doesn't need medical help, his absolute obligation is to do everything not to have any iota of being affected others, because he never knows who he's affecting and how he's affecting. But let's go to the other half. How much does he have to watch himself from not being affected by others, which was, again, there's a certain level, in other words, a person doesn't have to be in a situation that, doesn't, what we call a hypochondriac, it doesn't have to be in a situation that, anything could happen. I have to be careful. I have to just not leave my house because something somewhere may happen, even though it's not probable, and anything could happen. But the idea is, first of all, has to know what his situation is. If he's in a higher risk category for any reason, which I'm not the expert on, naturally he has to take absolute precaution. If a person is within normal bounds and within the age group of not being especially high risk, it's a combination. That's not I'm not the one. Again, you have to take the precautions personally and publicly, all precautions. I don't know, in Israel, we know that there's no such thing as going out in public without it being full face covering, not to affect and infect others or infect yourself in any way. And it's absolutely, I think, warranted. As long as the pandemic is still going around, I don't want to judge the situation in any given place. Like New York, I understand people feel a sense that things are better, even though what's been happening lately is that things get better and then they go back, because since people become more relaxed, it keeps a bit back, and it's always happened almost anywhere in the world. It's been working that way. There's a few exceptions where, again, that's not but the precautions, absolute precaution has to be taken within the limits of those, where those precautions allow a person to function. We should continue functioning, just like we have to continue functioning. We don't close down our business. When it comes to minyanim, if we've come to a situation we could have a safe environment and it done safely, and the people who come are only the people who are not at that high risk, and they come with absolute precaution. It could be done, but again, you have to get the right advice, how to, the right medical advice, how to do it and when to do it, and if it could be done. In Israel, we're very much into the porch minyanim, the backyard minyanim, the porch, all these things which create many unique halachic situations also. But I imagine in the environment of New York City, that porch minyanim is not really what is not a real option of this. But again, within
the reality.
Within the reality, within what the reality of the situation is, again, it involves an amount of people. How many people and which people? You have to slowly, work things. But again, with the right advice of how to be careful. If everyone comes to shul, I would imagine it couldn't be without masks. Then obviously the question is masks with Shabbos. All these situations have to be dealt with, but within reason, that we're not taking any real risk. We have to try to continue living, just like we open our offices because we have to continue. Those also have to be done under extreme precaution. I guess that's.
Thank you very much, Jacob. Would you like to conclude?
Rabbi Zevulun, I wanted to ask. Yeah, sure. Yeah, Rabbi Zevulun, you can hear?
I hear you perfectly.
Okay, so Tisha B'Av, you were saying about you were comparing it to losing a family member or someone you're close to, that it's
Worse.
really, it's even worse. It's more extreme.
Right.
So for most of us, or all of us, I should say, we don't even understand. We never had the Beis HaMikdash, so we don't understand really what we're missing. So I wonder if you could give us some direction, maybe, to make this Tisha B'Av more meaningful, so that we, understand
I'll
what
tell you.
we're missing, and B, maybe there's something that we can do, because this Tisha B'Av, because people are under unusual circumstances. Maybe something we can do this year that's different than other years.
The point that I was trying to make, because of the uniqueness of the situation we're in this year, lies a tremendous opportunity. Because since we understand the way things are going, the world order, our economic order, our social order, we're at a dead end. Things just aren't working, and we don't really see the way out. That means we have to see. No, it's the olam kimin hogonoig. Things is not there. This is the way of the world. No, the way of the world is not a way. So the answer is not. Obviously, each person has to figure out, and each kehillah, how to deal practically with, what to do under the circumstances, what to do naturally. But it still doesn't resolve. The war. It's at a dead end, and the dead end is the virus, plus even the direction of America, which we felt so secure and safe about. We're at a dead end. That tells us, maybe this is not the real. Maybe there's really something else that we should be looking for. That's the idea. Here's the wake up that says, and then we should start thinking, no, there's a different way of life. Life could have a greater meaning, and our whole sense of, where we're at, where we should be at, something else. Because obviously the message is that the system is not, the system's in place and that's it. No, the system is not in place. And that reminds us there's no real system. The only system is the system of Rebbeinu, which we look forward to, which is a system of living in a perfect world, which is centered around our relationship to the Rebbeinu. The wake up is that the present system is not working. Then we say, Hashivein, bring us to somewhere else.
And specifically for Tisha B'Av, in other words, is Tisha B'Av a time of introspection more than other times? The
greatest time of introspection is when a person should realize that when we realize whatever is not working, it's not a question of let's find which bug to fix in the system, right? We know today, it's all a bunch of bugs, and we fix the bug, and then we continue, and then the system, then everything is working, and then I'll have the apps are back to work, and everything is working perfectly. We're not here to fix. When we realize it's not fixing another bug,
there's a bigger picture.
It's a bigger picture. It's a bigger picture.
And specifically on Tisha B'Av, that's a time of
that's time to realize that there has to be a different picture. That's the time.
And can Rabbi also
gives us the opportunity to relate to that idea. This is a tremendous opportunity we have when things when we see the world order is disintegrating.
And can you talk about also that Tisha B'Av itself is not a permanent thing, right? So it's something that's there to change. Meaning Tisha B'Av eventually will be a holiday, right?
It's Tisha B'Av is permanent. It's permanent to tell us that there has to be a different order. Now it's saying what has to be, and in the future day that is. Tisha B'Av is the time to turn over the world from this to that.
But when the Beis HaMikdash comes back, won't it be a holiday, or what will Tisha B'Av be?
That's the holiday, because this is we realize that this is Tisha B'Av, the holiday we realize Beis Hamikdash is our way of life. This is the life of Beis Hamikdash, the life of the life of where everything, the whole material world is perfect because it's a stepping stone to something greater.
Okay.
That's what Tisha B'Av is there to open our eyes to that perspective, and then to celebrate it perpetually when we reach that situation.
Okay, one last thing. Someone, the eighth Sarah is something we bring, or it's brought on us. You were mentioning earlier about eighth Sarah. How does that work?
Well, we have to. We don't bring it. I mean, in a technical sense, we don't bring it ourselves. The virus, I don't know if it came from China or from wherever else it came from, or if it was done, it was covered up intentionally, not covered up. It came. I mean, we don't technically bring it, but in actuality, every tzara, every tzara we have to realize we'll never have a tzara unless it's there. Part of it is a lesson. The lesson it teaches us to open our eyes to what we have to improve. No, if we would be perfect, if the world would be perfect, there's no tzara.
It wouldn't be here.
It wouldn't be here.
Okay.
And the tzara's purpose, one of its main purposes, is to open our eyes, to give us guidelines and directions. And when the tzara is so comprehensive, so inclusive, the direction has to be that the solution is comprehensive and inclusive.
Okay, thank you so much. And I know it's 3:35 in the morning, so we're not going to keep you. Rabbi Babbage?
Yes, Rabbi Schwartzman, thank you so much. Dedication to stay up so late, this B'Tel community. We're very grateful. Get up so early, and please God, the Rabbi should be blessed with good health, and the entire community, and the Kehillah.
The Kehillah should. The first thing is it should be Chalash Yemeinu Kekedem. That in the Kehillah itself, you should be Hashem by the time Rosh Hashanah comes, you should have a packed house, a packed, healthy house, and we should all hear that Kiyah Shofar, which is a reminder to us of T'kava Shofar Gadol, of the great Shofar of redemption.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Schwartzman. We greatly appreciate it, and we thank everyone for joining us this evening, and we look forward to seeing everybody soon. Have a wonderful evening.
Sure. Thank you. Bye-bye.